we'll start. It's 4020 not live. The lockdown continues, although apparently we're £16 million richer. So over the next hour or so, we'll work out how we're going to spend that money and not pay it back.
Are you going to put a grant in for your haircut? What's happened? Have your clippers broke or what? That is an absolute shocker.
Well, I'm not going anywhere, am I? So I might as well leave it like this for the time.
Yeah, but I thought you did it last week and then you were going to get rid of the rest of it. I didn't realise you're keeping it.
I quite like it at the minute. So
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I look like Ed Cook, for the night.
Me and Paul would love an haircut like that.
It would.
Next time I grow it out, I'll send you some over.
If I add what you've got to what I've got, I think we've got a full head of hair.
That's it, mate. That's it. We know. It'll happen to him one day.
Good to see Mr. Bennett amongst us. Not seen you for a while. I'm just hoping that you're not going to do a Chris Kamara on us.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah, well, he was on one of these kind of calls on, was it Good Morning Britain this week? And they asked him to do a headstand and he had to admit he wasn't wearing any trousers, so he couldn't.
Okay.
Just hoping you're the same.
Don't ask me. That's the easiest way around that, isn't it? But no, I don't watch Good Morning Britain. You'll be shocked.
Well, I'm trying to think of the most polite way of saying this, but if Chris Kamara hadn't stood up, he wouldn't have been the biggest penis on that programme anyway.
Oh, no, in fairness, he wasn't on that day. He wasn't on. No, he wasn't on.
The saviour of British journalism wasn't on. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go 2 minutes in. Well, it's anatomically correct. We can say that. So we're back to discuss again. We've come on. You think, well, nothing's going to happen in the week, and then everything happens. And as alluded to, Paul Bennett's here from League Weekly, joining us for the first time because we thought, we may as well get someone from over the Pennines because they can't come to see us on a Monday because it's too much hassle to pay anyone to come over the Pennines.
Yeah,
I'll use the word pay there.
This is almost bearable for me. So that's. I noticed.
Presumably you've got a light on in your place because I can't imagine the sun shining west of the Pennines.
Oh, there's plenty of sunshine. Yeah, we've got the conservatories here. So it's yeah. I see it's quite blurry in the background there, Phil. Is that a special effect you've done?
No, that's the state of my eyes with lack of sleep, I think.
I mean, Phil, have you got like one of them big TV lighting things? It always looks, it's either incredibly sunny. I'm looking at it, it's raining in Bradford. Rich has got the sun beaming in. You've got sun beaming on you.
I think it's the word is on the righteous.
Okay.
North Leeds, isn't it? North Leeds, that's all right. South Leeds, talk about. But he must not be named. He'll be back. At least we haven't seen him topless doing exercises this week, so that's been a bonus.
I've not slept since that.
That could be the cause of the nightmares.
Something.
I think you speak to him more than we do probably these days, Phil. I think you need to have a quiet word. I think we're going to nominate you as the voice of reason. You just need to have a word with a legend and say, look, Ledge, just keep a t-shirt. It's bad enough when he had his vest on, let alone topless.
Intervention.
Well, I'm going to ask Paul first of all because he's our guest. We've got £16 million from this government. I mean, what a great gift from the government. £16 million. How much we have to pay back, we don't know because no one's told us yet. What we're going to spend it on, Paul?
Good question. We could unfurlough League Weekly and maybe invest a bit more in the editor's job there, just to up the content, up the quality with a pay rise for him, whoever he is. Not sure. I don't really know. Obviously, there's a bit of reticence, isn't there, certainly from Michael Carter, and I'm sure from many other chief execs and chairmen, to leap too much into this and commit to borrowing too much, knowing that that it is a loan. And I did get the sense that many were expecting a bit of a grant, a bit of a bailout, in a sense. And I wonder how many disappointed people there are across Super League now to realise that actually no, it's you got to pay it back. I don't know. I don't know where. I think a point I made on Twitter the other day was that this loan is dressed up as about supporting clubs that are at the hearts of the community. the communities that they're in, and therefore it's not about necessarily propping up the top league and the maintaining the standards of play that we currently have, or the standards that Super League currently sets. It's more protecting some of the more vulnerable sects of our community, I think.
I asked, I spoke to a chief exec of a championship club, and they said that they weren't in a particularly bad position. A lot of their players get paid match by, might get bonuses should they win, etc. And they felt that they were in quite a solid position despite what's been going on. Given that it's a loan and not like you said, not a handout, do you reckon that the RFL are going to have to be quite strict with who they give this money to? And do you think there's a danger the RFL might at some point have to say to someone, no, you're not having it because you're not in a position where you can pay it back?
I think two things. One is it has to be a loan. I don't think there's any doubt that so many other sports bodies are going to be asking for bailing out, that the government had to make sure that this was something that wouldn't be seen as a grant and setting a very dangerous precedent. In fact, I think basketball and Scottish football have already tried to go down the same route. So, whilst the magic money tree clearly doesn't exist, we're the first cab off the rank, and I think the government had to be seen that there's an element of help yourself, not just here's a grant. I think the other thing is they are protecting an investment themselves. They've invested 25 million quid in the World Cup. And again, I don't know what the RFL would have said, but one of the things it might have done is say, we're not going to be able to give you a return on that 25 million quid if we're not here. So I think it is intrinsically linked in with the World Cup next year and making sure that Rugby League is in a healthy position when that comes around. I think the other thing about it is it's there to help preserve the governing body. So if anybody's going to be using that money, it's going to be the RFL themselves. They've got no income coming in, as far as I can see, until the earliest, really, 2021. So the issue there, I think, is if they are offered some money now, relatively favourable repayment term, then they themselves will be using it, to keep the administration going. I'm pretty sure as well there'll be some targets attached to the repayment. I don't think they'll be too onerous. I think those are the kind of things that the sport will hit. There's no time that we know that it's got to be repaid back over. I suspect that it'll be linked with we'll be getting some television monies in at some stage. We might also be making a profit on the World Cup. And I think there is a way of paying this money back. And more importantly than anything, we are the first sport to get it. I'm not sure our profile has ever been that high with the government, and even more bizarrely, a Conservative government.
Interesting times. Obviously, it seems that one of the people who wants, or group of people who want this money, are the players in the paper this morning. I did like how League Express described it as a cash bonanza, which is an interesting way of describing it, but there you go. The Players' Union have arisen and want their players to be paid a real wage for real rugby, whatever that means.
Go on, Paul. You can have this one.
You've passed that to me. Yeah. Well, I guess first of all, it's nice to have somebody speaking up for the players, even if perhaps it's a little heavy-handed in the approach that they've outlined there. That it seems like a demand, doesn't it? That we've got this money now, we deserve it. But for so long, there has been this gulf, this void in terms of representation of the players' interests. So it's good that there's somebody there to make the case for them. And I guess this is the starting position for them to say, listen, we need to talk about this with the clubs. Don't just assume that you can write us off. You don't just assume that we will take these pay cuts, because these are deals that you agree to, that we've agreed to. And it'll all come down, I'm sure, to how the season looks. If you're placing the same amount of demands on those players, then they deserve the money that they were promised. If there are changes, there are concessions in terms of the number of matches that they're played and what is expected of them, then I'm sure there's negotiations to be done there to make sure that they're getting what is fair and what they deserve, but also that it safeguards the clubs so that their position is secure and long term, that they have a source of employment from the clubs.
I just think there's a timing issue, a bit like Gary Hetherington's comments on player welfare. At the moment, we're supposed to be giving this united front. We're the sport that, you know, does loads in the community. We're all in this together. There's absolutely no doubt that when we do come back, there needs to be a discussion with the players about their role in coming back. And I think we've seen even with the NRL that, you know, the players were the first to say, you need to consult us in all of this, that, you know, there needs to be a set of criteria by which we're coming back. And we won't be coming back unless you include us. But they're on the verge of actually going training this week with a view to starting again in 3 weeks. We're nowhere near that at the moment. We won't know until Thursday at the earliest what the restrictions are going to be for at least the next 3 weeks in this country. And there may even be an announcement about phased return and playing with crowds will be right at the end of that. So I'm not sure this was the right time for the players to be saying that, although I agree with Paul that the fact that they have a voice has taken us further down the line of where they need to be.
I'm trying to work out. I've muted Mark, and I'm trying to work out onto a muting.
No, I think I'm all right. I think I muted myself. Hold on, my IT man's here. Yeah, good. I've sorted it. Thanks. I just IT there. Said switch it off and switch it back on. Sorry, I'm rubbish. I told you I'm rubbish at stuff like this. I'd be interested in what you said there, Paul. I tweeted the same yesterday. Nice to see the Players Association having a bit of bite, but I just think they're backing the wrong horse here. I just think it's come across as overly aggressive in something that didn't need to maybe be aggressive with. I'm pretty sure we had Michael on last week, Michael Carter from Wakefield, and he said, look, if we earn any more money, I'll channel that towards the players. We're not going to profit out of what is happening with the furlough, etc. We're not going to profit from that. I spoke to another chairman from another Super League club, and they told me the amount they're going to lose if they have to play behind closed doors is going to be a phenomenal amount. Now, what do? Do they borrow that money from the RFL to cover that? Well, I don't see why they should. I think the players have got to realise, look, they've got to play these games. If they don't play them all, there'll be no TV money. That'll be the next thing to go, and they won't be getting paid anything. So I think they've got to be really, really careful. And I could see a few players getting kicked out of their club at the end of the season over this and over there. I think that I sense there's been a change in attitude from some players. I think when the pay cut was initially agreed, from what I understand, a lot of the players were fine with it. They didn't have any issue with it. But now all of a sudden they think they're going to get this money back. I think there's going to be a few fallouts, and I think a few people could be doing themselves a disservice. I think they've got to suck it up. And, you know, club staff at the club, they're not getting paid full money. So, you know, I know the players are what we all come to see, but I just think they've got to suck it up a little bit and hopefully in time, you know, next year everything will be all right. It's just no one can have foreseen the circumstances that we're in. You know, I don't think rugby league players get paid enough. I think we all probably would agree on that. But I think on this eventuality, they've just got to suck it up. I don't think any of them are losing too much money. You know, there could be self-employed journalists, couldn't they, Rich?
Yeah, there could be. Apparently, I can now apply to see if I can get some money from the government. So that'll be exciting to see, won't it?
Yeah.
If I have to pay that back as well, but I have to pay tax on it, so that's a bit pointless.
Yeah.
Well, not to rub it in, but I got mine last Monday, and it's the best money I've ever earned, I must say.
Oh, you did you?
Yeah.
You should, mate. Surely you should take that T-shirt off then. Have you had that specially made for the show?
Yeah, especially for you.
Good. Have you got a couple for me and Rich?
Yes, I'll get some delivered.
And can you add a very or just at the beginning at the top?
Absolutely.
We'll podcast for food.
But what Mark was saying, I do agree with that. What I would say is that I think we've got to get there by negotiation and sort of mutual consent, rather than clubs saying, "Listen, you've got, you know, this is what's happening, and you've got to suck it up." I think there does. Obviously, there were discussions prior to agreeing the temporary pay cuts. I think it's got to be a collegiate approach between them. That sounds a bit like Ralph Rimmer, that doesn't it? Sorry about that. But there's got to be.
You mentioned stakeholder. You're off, by the way.
But yeah, we've got to. I think everyone's got to pull together, and I think the players will understand that. You know, I wouldn't confuse the view of the whatever position he is at the GMB for the views of the players themselves. You know, I think it's just an outlining a position of what technically you are owed and what is your right. And I'm sure the players will, like you said, Mark, will look at the situation and think, you know, we can afford to take a bit of a pay cut here, and they will do it. I think, but I think it's the best way to do it is by coming together and talking about it and what's reasonable, rather than taking two extreme positions and saying.
Here's one for you then. Here's a counter argument. So you're a club chairman. You've done all your budgets. And obviously, all of a sudden, you've got whatever £500,000 or £1 million hole in your budget. If you go out and borrow that money to pay and then pay the players, and then something happens and you can't then repay the debt, we'd say that owner's been irresponsible, wouldn't we? You know, like, let's use Bradford or, you know, the latest example. When they didn't pay the player, everyone said, well, they've not been responsible. The owners haven't been responsible. So there is a line, isn't there? And I must put on record, I do think the players are underpaid. I feel sorry for them. But I think it's affecting that many people. I just think it comes across as crass. And I agree with you, Paul. I actually wonder how many players voice the opinion that has been put out on the article. It is a bit union speak rather than actually the players speaking for themselves, possibly.
Yeah.
I think there's a role of evidence here as well. The important thing is that somebody has to mediate the idea that the 16 million sat in a bank account and anyone can have access to it. You know, the agents need to brief their players. The game at the moment is in perilous danger of not being sustainable. So an influx of money that has conditions attached to it isn't the same as, you can be paid back anything that you've lost. So there's just not a lot of point having this debate at the moment, because we don't know what or if the 2020 season is going to look like, and we don't know what or if the sport is going to look like until we get an idea of what the next television deal is going to be in 2021. Because, you know, there's already talk of reducing the salary cap maybe in the future, teams going to part-time. You know, that's going to affect the wages of the players. Now is probably not the time to be having that debate. There are issues about how many fans are going to be able to afford season tickets after the end of all this. You know, will extra money be demanded for streaming of matches? All of that is worth having discussions about behind closed doors. But the whole thing that has got us to where we are, and that is in the public face saying that you can have some money drawn down from the public purse, is the fact that we have given this impression of unity. And we don't really want to break that at the moment, I don't think.
No, it's difficult times, everyone. And I can see why the union would want to come out and give the players their full wages. But this £16 million, which I understand is not to be there for paying players, can't be squandered. And my fear is, because we've seen it too many times, is clubs will get this money, absolutely blow it on unnecessary things. I'm not talking about the wages or infrastructure. And we'll be back in the same position in 6 months' time, because I don't trust anyone, where we'll be back with the begging bowls out, because we've seen it at too many clubs in the real world when the real world was normal. And now we're in an unnormal position for these clubs to not get the begging bowl out.
I think the difference this time is something that Ralph said on his collective call, explaining the rationale behind why we got the money, is there are templates that are submitted to government. So I think if you put on there as a club owner, I'd like to squander some money by buying a new second rower, you ain't going to get the money. It's going to be really closely regulated. It's going to be stipulated what you're using it for. There's going to be terms that you can and can't use it for. So I don't think it will be squandered. And I do think that a lot of it will be used to run the game from the centre, because without Red Hall being able to have access to some funds at the moment, they couldn't survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we? All right, then. Well, let's have a look at it. They've got this money, and in fairness, it looked when it got broken. Big win for Ralph in the battle for leadership. It looked like Ralph had pulled a blind, and everyone thought, some free. Oh, it's not free. All right. Oh, okay then. Is that not? Do we not need to make those decisions before we start allocating that money? Do we not need to say, right, we are going to one leader or leader group or however they want to do it? Is that not the first thing? Is there a danger that the first bit of that money might be used to make a leader redundant, shall we say? Don't all be quiet.
The decision on that is going to rest with the Super League clubs because they are effectively paying for their own administration. Now, if they decide collectively that they can't afford that administration, then it'll go. I would imagine at the moment there will be some private debate going on behind the scenes as to what a settlement look like, because bear in mind it's not just the two respected heads of the different administrations, it's the staff and that they're under them that would be either entitled to some redundancy and or payment because their contracts have been...
Phil, why don't we go the old hog, right, and bring Nigel back because he's not got a job now?
Was he not the new owner of Bradford?
Well, you can do that on the side, apparently. No, but serious. I'm not being serious at all. But it's an option. He's back.
I'm not sure that's an option, to be honest.
That would be the most spectacular comeback since Kim Jong-un, wouldn't it? I guess.
He's back up the pylons. He's back.
Yeah, I don't see that. It's funny that I guess the timing of that and that Nigel's in the sort of news, because if you might get onto the topic maybe of considering what Nigel's legacy is, I guess one of the big things is that his unpopularity within the owners of the game led to this split, which we are now finding is costing us more money than we can afford and has to be hastily undone. So it'd be interesting to see if indeed the two bodies are amalgamated back together, whether there is more unity given the current leadership compared to the previous leadership. But then, I think there's been a few comments, hasn't there, about I think Neil Hodgson, Michael Carter said it. McManus has sort of hinted towards a return to how it was in many respects, but I think McManus said that Super League can't go back to where it was 2 years ago. So there has to be some alteration to what was the situation prior to now. We're not just going to return to how it was before, are we? Despite the fact that the current situation is no longer maintainable.
I think the Super League will get more seats on the RFL board, so that when decisions are made, they have more of a say. And I think that Simon Johnson, as the chair, would agree to that. But I don't think there's any doubt that one of the things the government have said you've got to look at if you're going to get this money is a reduction of cost. And if you hadn't come to us and said that you're going to pare down every cost in the game to enable us to support you, then we wouldn't have got it. And I think the biggest administrative cost is an over-duplication of resource, because I think we said it at the time. It's not like Super League went out and recruited a whole load of new people. Most of the staff they took were out of the RFL. So, either to put those people back in or to say, well, there was a needless over-duplication in certain places. I think every chairman and owner can see that, a political point was made nearly 2 years ago when I think we were extremely complacent that we had more money than we'd ever had, and clubs were getting extra handouts, and we were too far away from the new TV deal at that point to worry about at what level it would come in at. But we needed to make sure that whatever it did come in at, it was all going to go, or most of it was going to go to Super League. I think that was the reason why they did it, and they wanted to break what they perceived to be the power stranglehold at the time of Nigel, who was in charge of the RFL and who he was being seen to be advised by. So I think they'll feel that that was their justification for doing it, and that maybe it had that desired effect. What they now realise is they can't afford to keep that going. And if it comes back in-house under somebody like, let's say, Ralph, who they feel that has a working relationship with most of the owners of those Super League clubs, but they get more say above him on the board of directors, it sort of works for everybody. They can walk away having saved a little bit of face, but we haven't learned the lesson of history, because that's exactly what happened 20 years ago.
Yeah, look, I mean, I said at the time when they got rid of Nigel, you know, for the reasons that they'll say were right, they should, in my opinion, the next item on the agenda of that meeting should have been to pull all the clubs back together and say, right, he's gone now. This is how we're going to move forward together, because I think together it's the only way the Championship that are going to get any meaningful TV deal is by being with the Super League clubs. Again, going back, I think we keep talking about blank canvas, blank piece of paper. I think there's got to be some really, really harsh decisions made in the next month, 2 months. And I know it's hard because we don't know when the game's going to be actually be back on the field. So I guess that makes it a little bit more awkward for everyone. But I reckon they've got to decide now between the full and the part-time. I know you've mentioned this before, Phil. I think we need to split not into Super League and Championship. We need to look at full-time and part-time. And we need to look, and maybe Sky need to be a part of this as part of a new deal. And I think we completely need to overhaul the game as it is to where we're going to be, say, in 2 years' time. And that's not to mean that Batley, Dewsbury, whoever's not in the Super League or full-time haven't got a future. Of course they have. They can be perfectly successful clubs in the Championship. They've proved that. They're well-run clubs and they're great in the community, etc. So, no, I'm not saying get rid of them. But what I'm saying is we need to focus at the top end, because if they can put together a deal that encourages Sky to put their hand in the pocket, that will ultimately be to the benefit of the clubs that are part-time. And I do think that's something we've got to look at now. I think that we keep saying, oh, this is a defining, but this is it. This is the time. I think this is it. I think this has shown us now, this dreaded coronavirus has shown a lot of people in business and in other sports can't carry on like we're carrying on. It's not working.
Well, do you think the effect of a global pandemic can actually get the fans with us on this, though? I mean, it's all right having that point of view, but we've been there with licensing, and that was very unpopular with many people who just, aside from anything, thought it was un-British, I guess, not in the British sporting culture that promotion and relegation that is sort of part of how we've always done things, certainly in the national game in football. Do you think that the current circumstances are going to be able to convince the fans of clubs like that?
I think there are three things. Firstly, you have to define who your fans are and look at your fan base. And we have an ageing fan base, and we need to find some way of attracting new, younger fans. Now, that might well be in geographical areas that we're not as consistently strong as we are at the moment. That clearly is one thing. I think the other thing as well is that you look at something like the documentary that was done when Super League came. You look at the discussion on merging. You look at the way licensing was introduced. I'm not sure it was the principles of what we were doing. It was how we communicated that. I think we made people feel excluded. And then, going back to your point about, is this the British way of doing things? What is the British way of doing things? That has to change. That you don't have to play every team home and away anymore. There are leagues that run without that. We've gone to a playoff system, which some people say, oh, it doesn't reward first past, but we've always had a Championship playoff. We have the ability to tailor the sport to what suits us. We had 31 teams in one division once. So that would be deemed ludicrous now. Things do have to change, and I genuinely think that you also have made an assumption there, which a lot of people do, that licensing and promotion and relegation is mutually exclusive. And it isn't, because licensing done properly includes an element of promotion relegation, but based on criteria and standards, which aren't just how you perform on the field. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think you can actually be a leading sport if you take that on board. One of the clubs who have coped with this crisis better than any, because they have consistently cut their cloth according to their means, is Coventry Bears. And whilst they are really struggling not being able to put on the sport that they love in the arena that they'd like to with the players that they've signed up, they are not suffering any material financial loss at the moment, because their model, which has actually been referenced by how Saracens are going to be reformed and how Richmond are going to play in rugby union next year, it is an economic model that works. And if at some point you can say to them, if your economic model works and you can improve your standards on the field, there is a place for you in Super League. And it's not merely contingent upon whether you are the best community team or a championship team or not. Then you can have promotion relegation. It's just how you go about doing it. I think closing a trapdoor is wrong, but having standards is absolutely right.
It's a huge leap, though, isn't it, Phil? Paying your players £50 a week like they do at Coventry to run in a Super League operation. You've got to bear that in mind. But I also want to do, and we all fully support Coventry and what they're doing and how they're building the club. But are we too worried about what 600 fans that may watch a championship team once every fortnight are going to kick off? You get all these people coming out of the woodwork that have never been to a game in the championship. And also, for those clubs in the championship, particularly those at the bottom, would they not get more fans if they actually had a chance of winning the division rather than every other week they're playing a team that's got a budget 12 times bigger than they've got? And therefore, what's the point in even you're really there to exist and just give someone a game every 3 months? What's the point in that? So I do think we need to be a little bit more ruthless, and I think the people that run their clubs properly would welcome the chance to be able to win something. Well, you would imagine they'd welcome the chance to be able to win something, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. I think this value for money principle, which is insisted upon by government giving us this bailout anyway, will affect every single sport. I think, Paul will be seeing it in some of the Northwest football clubs at the moment. I think that rugby union, again, we're not comparing ourselves with anybody. They are undergoing this exact same exercise of saying, we've made some real mistakes over the last 10 years, and just calling yourself a professional club is actually a millstone around your neck if you can't be that. And racking up debt is to the detriment of your fans, because if you end up like a Bolton Wanderers or a Bury, no matter who is in charge, the problem is that if you are spending beyond your means to attain something that isn't attainable, would you rather have a club that you can support and as you say, a chance to win something reasonable and reliable in amongst the clubs that you are equal to, or every so often do you want to touch the sun and burn and then either have to start again in Division 7 or never come back?
Yeah. Isn't part of our problem as well, though, there's a sort of imbalance between teams who have the ambition and the potential, I guess, to be top flight teams and teams that don't, and that really probably should be.
Is that not the full-time, part-time split though, Paul? If I would imagine if you looked at Lee, they've got the ambition to be a full-time team. With potential, I don't know.
I'm just saying, even within the part-time split at the minute, when the championship is pretty much all part-time league, but you've got a split between them. Clubs who like Widnes or Featherstone are thinking, you push for promotion, or Lee or Bradford, and others who are thinking, well, we're just businesses, about serving the community, about what represents this area and survival. So but
unless they've got the finance in place to be full time, and that's not for 1 year. That's not just getting promoted. That is a sustainable business plan that says for the next 5 years, our ownership group or the guy who's backing us, or the shareholders we're going to get, be they even including some of the supporters, are prepared to guarantee X million pound a year for the next 5 years. You can't be deemed to be a Super League team.
No, I agree. But what I'm saying is, I guess there's below the top 12 that we currently have, there's not quite enough the next standard of teams to have a sort of level of competition that they would need to be able to develop into a top flight team. I don't think there's a bit of a divide there between the top of the championship and the rest. And I guess if you're talking about redrawing the league, and how we're going to emerge from this, it's harder to break the news of the return of licensing to the clubs at the top than it is at the bottom, who are a little bit more realistic about their position, perhaps.
A sport for the many and not the few, to misquote Jeremy Corbyn. Well, I think the politicians are all on our side now. I don't know. It's all strange to have these people in the ivory towers down in London shining a light on rugby league, and as you say, ahead of other sports, and how we spend that money, and hopefully wisely, we'll be seeing in the next few weeks. As Mark has mentioned, we still have no idea when we're going to see any rugby, and it does appear that we are waiting for football to blink first, which what's it, Project Restart they've got planning at the moment for venues or whatever coming up. So,
yeah, but same problems now, Rich, because teams won't play at neutral venues, worried it's going to impact on their ability to survive, and and again, money talks, and it's going to be, are they going to have to in effect be paid off and no relegation? No, how's that going to affect then the championship? It's a strange one, I think. I don't think that's as clear cut as everyone would have you believe at the minute.
So the Premier League teams are not flying out to Perth then to finish the season, which I read somewhere today. Which has got to be even more bizarre than New Zealand Warriors not being in New Zealand.
Like that year Argentina had a first division full of 36 clubs or something because someone was upset at something, and just have a mad league. Let's have the Rugby League full of all the teams in one division. I think it was Peter Fox, one of his ideas when we went to 3 divisions in the early 90s was to put all the teams in a hat and draw them out. So let's just have Wigan versus West Wales every other week.
I was going to say, you can imagine Sky be rubbing their hands at the prospect. So rubbing their hands at St Helens and Wigan going down to West Wales. They can't wait for it.
It's like Wigan versus Warrington.
Oh dear.
Well, at least it'd be different, wouldn't it? One of my gripes is that we play the same fixtures too many times. If we're going to get into that, then
I think on how we restart, there is going to have to be a decision made about whether we do any or all of it behind closed doors. Because I think the one thing that probably will emerge over the next few days, possibly into weeks, is the fact that we'll be told when crowds can come back, and that's not something we can control. And if
Phil, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I'd be surprised if you get a crowd at the grand final. I think everything is going to be behind closed doors.
So the decision's got to be made. At what point is it economically viable, if at all, for us to play any or all of our 2020 matches behind closed doors?
I think the Championship and League One seasons, you almost might as well cancel now, personally. I don't see the point of playing them behind closed doors, because the only reason to play behind closed doors is to fulfill our Sky contract, isn't it? And to get that source of income. So unless Sky are going to suddenly demand in the crisis of lack of content that all Championship and League One games should be on as well, then there's not really much point in playing those seasons, is there? Especially if we're, as it looks likely that we're not going to sanction any sort of promotion or relegation this season because of the extraordinary circumstances. So you do wonder what is the point there. Super League wise, like you say, we're all looking at the Premier League, aren't we? And whenever the Premier League gets up and running, it'll still be month, 2 months before I think we even look like coming back, because we're not at that level, are we?
The problem there, though, Paul, we mentioned it last week, is that with the Premier League as well, I think they said they're going to play the season in 5 weeks. When that 5 weeks ends, Sky are going to be begging for more live sport, and I think that's where Rugby League's got to come in, and I think Super League would have to be playing at that point.
Yeah, well, that would certainly be advantageous for us, wouldn't it? Something for us to take advantage of, whether the logistics can be worked out so that it's safe for the players and everybody involved. It doesn't put them at risk. That's got to be the plan. I think we've got to look at our own Project Restart, if you want to put it like that, as to how can we capitalise on that gap in the market without endangering any of our players or staff.
Would you start with the Challenge Cup and play that to a conclusion? So you could. If we're talking about finals without fans, is there any point?
Well, there's no. What's the prize money for winning the Challenge Cup? I know it used to be in the front of the programme, and Silk could have donated this much money to the winners, but no, it's not a publicised thing these days, is it? No one says, "Oh well, Catalans have won 250 grand for winning the Challenge Cup." So do we just say, "Well, we'll just scrap it for this year and bring it back next year when we have got fans to see a final"?
Quite possibly. Depends how much time you've got to play your weekly rounds, doesn't it? In Super League, I think they will prioritise the Super League, getting that finished. And if it means scrapping the Challenge Cup, I think they'll do that. If you get into the realms where it's almost impossible to have any sort of meaningful league competition, then maybe you start thinking about some of the things that you were talking about last week in terms of your other exhibition events and different sort of competitions you can have that are short and sharp, I suppose. And the Challenge Cup would then play its own role in that. Other than that, I imagine that it's a likely casualty. Personally,
how would you have a grand final behind closed doors? How would that work?
Well, you'd have a final, and there would be no one there.
We saw the snooker, didn't we? We saw the old Judd Trump lifting the trophy. No one in the arena. You could say, look, it'll still mean as much to the players, even if the fans out there, they still want to win it, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, there's probably no point having it at Old Trafford, but
open
your back garden.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get it out. I've floated this idea. Get it at Odsal. Odsal.
Oh man.
We're going to spend
on.
Why don't they just put a TV? Why don't they put a TV on every seat and you can Skype in so that the players could see you? They know you were there. There, you could Skype in.
Are you Mike
office for that at Bellevue? Sorry, at the Mobile Rocket.
The Mobile Rocket. There's plenty of room for TVs. We can get some TVs in there. Don't worry about it. We've got a big screen. Everything there.
Brilliant.
Changing rooms. We can have we'd love to host the grand final. I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of the owners, but they'd love to host the grand final at the Mobile Rocket.
Well, it's the best pitch in the league, apparently. So there you go. If there's no fans there, that's all that counts, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Do what they did at Arsenal that time. Just have
the mural.
Murals of fans. Yeah.
Well, that's happened at Bellevue before, of course. When they filmed this Sporting Life, they had some cutouts in the crowd. And some would say we could have the final in Toronto then, based on that theory. We know, well, are the Catalans coming over to stay then? Because obviously you mentioned New Zealand Warriors are moving over to Australia for the rest of their season, which is definitely dictated to by television. We've got Toronto already over here. We're just waiting for the Catalans to make their move, I guess, because there's no sport being played in France, so they will have to. Otherwise, they'll have to just forfeit the season.
Well, Phil and I spoke to Sam Tompkins the other day on TalkSport 2, and he said, didn't he, Phil, that they're more than happy. If they've got to come to England, they'll come to England. They fancy winning it. That's what he said to us.
I think the plan in Bernard Gouache's mind is that they will gladly come over here and spend maybe up to 2 months decamped here playing games, provided they can go back and play some over there either at the end of August or beginning of September, when it sounds as though the French government has said sport can recommence. Because again, he's going to need a return on his investment. The £16 million it can't be used by clubs like Toronto or the Dragons. And I must say, I thought that the statement from Bob Hunter of Toronto, in the knowledge that he wasn't getting any of the money, was absolutely fantastic. There is diplomacy. It's absolute finest, praising the RFL and all the other clubs for getting access to money that he knows he can't have a part of. I think Bernard would say, I need a return. We'll gladly come over, but somebody's going to have to give me something to compensate either us not having any games when we go back, or you've got to find a way of coming over here. The issue for me isn't even so much them, because I think you can not have relegation this year. I think there is a compelling case that virtually every club in Super League would say it's not fair at this stage. And those towards the bottom end or owners of clubs that might be involved in a relegation spat would quite rightly say, I don't want to put any more money in if there's a chance that I'm going to lose it all down the drain at the end of the season. The issue is promotion, because the same applies to Toulouse, and nobody's really mentioned them. Are they prepared as a part-time club to come over and be based over here? Can they even do that? But they are the front runners for promotion. So, it's all very well Lee saying we want to be promoted, or Featherstone saying we want to be up there and considered. But if Toulouse can't be involved in the mix, you can't have promotion either.
No. And I guess that adds into the mix of why I don't really feel that there's going to be a championship season, or certainly that's a growing feeling that I'm having, that it won't happen. There won't be a championship or League One this year. That's all. I guess that's that issue. In that case, it's a big one for us to overcome, isn't it? Getting to lose here, dealing with players at a different level, different standard, different wages.
What about if they all just played each other once, Paul, and forget the home and away bit, just play each other once? Obviously that'd shorten the season down to maybe 3 months, and then have the playoffs at the end of that. Do you think they'd do that?
Well, I don't see any issue in that, as long as you've got a playoff system. because it's not as if you have to play each other an equal amount of times for it to be fair. Once you've got a playoff system, that negates the need to have that sort of parity. And if you're playing all games behind closed doors, then that absolutely makes sense. This was an issue you talked about for Super League last week with Michael Carter, wasn't it? And I think Super League chief execs and chairman and owners are pretty reluctant to reduce the size of the fixture list because of what fans might say and what season ticket holders might say. But if it comes to it, and this is the only solution, then I think it makes sense. And again, it's all part of everyone having to give a little and to negotiate together about what's the best way through. And if we do certain things, then are certain demands going to come from certain groups or not? And it's about everyone being understanding, I guess, and working on a plan that can get us through it.
And interesting as well, sorry, if we do say no fans at all, then season ticket holders are going to have to be refunded or credited with a season ticket for next year. Clubs are going to be losing money next year without anything happening, aren't they?
Well, I think that's where the 16 million quid comes in, I think, in some respects. It will safeguard the clubs in the knowledge that there's going to be a period of time where, whether it's the end of this year or for next season, where they're not getting income from season ticket holders. I think the other thing is, at what point do we have to make the 2021 season sacrosanct? There's going to have to be a pre-season before we start playing again this year. There's got to be a decent pre-season before we go into 2021. Because the thing about that year is the World Cup at the end of it. If we are ever going to recoup monies, if we're ever going to profile the players in the manner that we want to, if we're ever going to give the sport a commercial lift, it's being successful in a World Cup over here. 2013, we didn't make the most of it, but it was a real boost for the game in terms of 500,000 people were exposed to it. Virtually every game was available to watch on some platform or other, either through Premier Sport or the BBC. This World Cup, again, there will be different demands to how it was originally set up, but you'll be able to watch every one of the 30-odd games in this. We have to make sure that 2021 is a cash generator, and if we have to lose part of 2020 to do that, somebody needs to make that decision fairly quickly. And it's like Paul says, if there is no point having a competition for the sake of having it this year, let's call it off. Let's make sure that 2021 is a year that we can recoup some of that money. I don't know when you make that decision, but that has to be part of the thinking, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be some time before we're getting to that point, because I suspect it's going to be some time before we can legitimately think about any sort of comeback. But I think you're right. I think 2021 has to be our all-important season, and there's no room for error there. There's no room for it being delayed if we have a problem like, this year. Again.
That's all well and good, Paul. But what happens when Sky go, yeah, you remember that 40-odd million quid we gave you for 100 live games and we've had 12? Well, all right, well, that works out. We'll just have 30 million back. That's soon, your 16 million loan's soon gone then, hasn't it? You can't just not play. That's just, I get the point, and I agree with you. Next year's got to be looked at, but you can't just not play.
Well, yeah, it depends what's realistic. But Sky have also got to be realistic, because if they say, we're taking that money off you, we're not paying you that money, then that is close to a death sentence for rugby league, and that's content for them going forward.
But is that why that's not going to happen? Is that why that's not going to happen though? They're not going to want. I'm sure they don't want to ask for their money back, but that's going to happen. We've been told that the talks are ongoing regarding that. If there's no rugby, they will want their money back. Simple as.
Yeah, but I think again, it's what you give them. Maybe in 2021, you over deliver, so that they're taking only 2 games a week at the moment. You offer them 4. But you say those matches are going to be next year because we can't clearly viably put them on this year. I think the other thing is now and we mentioned this last week, the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. And you can almost see this jostling happen with Channel 9 and the NRL at the moment. Now is a really good time to be going to Sky and renegotiating the television deal. It was due to end at the end of 2021. Now is a good time to say, right, well, if you're prepared to throw in that you're not going to claw a lot, if any, money back this year, we're prepared to give you the next 2 or 3 years at a lesser rate. but a lesser rate that is guaranteed now so that we can budget and plan. I think that what Sky pay us, for us, is a lifeline. It's what keeps us going. But for Sky, I still think they get massive value for money from Rugby League. And I think
what about cricket though, Phil? The 100's gone. There's talk they want their money back. They're not going to pay them, but they're going to withhold that money. That's going to, very much damage cricket, isn't it? I just think I agree with you. As in, there's a deal to be done, and they are going to be crucial in what happens. I think in any decision that's made. But I also think they need to see that something's going to change, because I think for them in 3 years' time, Huddersfield against Salford on a Thursday in front of no people is not what they want to see.
Yeah, but I think the other thing about the 100 is that that's never been played before, and I think there's been a lot of public opposition to that competition anyway. So, they put
a lot of tickets, so apparently, to watch it.
Put up a lot of money for something that doesn't exist, then I think that's different to what have they had now, nearly 30-year relationship with Rugby League. So I still think the amount that they pay us, relatively speaking, for what we deliver for them is an economically sound argument, particularly if that amount will go down maybe for 2 or 3 years. So I genuinely do think that both sides of this debate need something out of each other, and that's always a really good time to negotiate.
It's almost like a one-day international. The situation we're in, to continue the cricket analogy, in so much as we know we're not playing at the moment. The covers are on, and the time we've got to play the game out is reducing day by day. It's how many overs we get in by the end, and how much money we have to give back to the people at the end as well. And we'll make sure we get in enough games so we don't have to give any money back. I think that's how it works in cricket. They always make sure they're on the pitch at least for a couple of overs to get their money. And of course, they make the money from the beer as well. Beer snakes banned, of course.
Are you suggesting we use the Duckworth-Lewis method to decide the rest of the season?
Well, I'd love to see a league table at the end of the season with quarter points and thirds of points, just to really confuse people in the future. So I think that's what we need to do. Just because
I reckon you're right. We go down the cricket way, Rich, because look at that pitch and the way it was at Headingley. They'd have been fine for poor pitch, wouldn't they? The seamers would have had a field day bowling on that. Although I do understand it looks nice and green now, so yeah, fair play.
Apart from the Foxley, which is all over it apparently.
All right, okay. Are you sure that's not students?
Rugby union players. It's all the Carnegie players. Are they still going? I don't know. I think we've got a couple of things left to talk about, unless you can think of anything else. And obviously, it was the anniversary this weekend of the death of Danny Jones. Can't believe it's 5 years since Danny lost his life playing this great sport. And I think we all remember those times vividly. You mentioned it on Twitter yesterday, Mark, or it might have been this morning, about the show we did. Well, it'll be 5 years till the day, weren't it? Which I don't think we've ever done anything like that, and fingers crossed, never will again. And thankfully, his memory lives on through Lizzie Jones and the charity works and the Danny Jones Defibrillator Fund, and the good works they're doing throughout society, not just in Rugby League, which is a fitting legacy for him. And obviously, this last week, we've had the sad passing of Jordan Cox, and again, another young person tragically involved with our sport losing their life.
Who was that addressed to Mark?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I couldn't get my fat fingers, couldn't press the mute button. Look, it's horrible. I think it just shows all the good work that's going on, and we've seen a hell of a lot of fundraising going on. It's never enough, is it? It's never enough. The job's never done in terms of mental health and whatever the circumstances were. It's a tragedy. It's a young man. No one had a bad word, did they? Everything I'm reading, what a lovely fella he was. I've never met him personally, but sad, really. And it just shows that we've just got to keep going with all that. As much as we think we're getting somewhere with it, we're not where we need to be. So, thoughts with his family and friends, obviously. And hopefully, we keep the good work and we get to a position where we don't have to talk about that again. But I feel it's a long way away at the minute.
You mentioned people raising money for charity, Mark. Jimmy Gittings the other week doing laps of his garden. I don't know how he does it. And Joe Phillips doing 26 miles in a garden last week. I don't know how these people do these things. It makes me feel sick because I can't do a single thing. But at least we can donate to them, and the great charities that surround our sport get the support in this time. It must be difficult for charities that are run challenges at home ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess this, in a different way, ties into what we've said about rugby league being, part of the community and the social benefits of rugby league, and like I say, in a very different way. But that's part of that community, that family is genuine, and out of these tragedies, we do come together, and the sport does play a service and helps people who need it. So, yeah.
I think what we do that's astonishing is, we've got current professionals, we've got ex-players, we've got fans, we've got loads of people doing things for the sport, for the benefit of the sport, not for themselves, not for their self-aggrandizement, not to be in the public eye. We've had three people who have just retired being on a bike for 26 hours, and there are just innumerable people who are doing fantastic things, kids right through to people of the great what was he now, Colonel Tom, just doing things, and that's all you can do. You can only promote causes, you can only try and look after people. You can't you can raise awareness, but you can't cover everybody in a safety net. It doesn't exist in society, but we always seem to do the right thing. And I think the Danny Jones thing reminds us. I'm part of a junior club that has a defibrillator on the back of the Danny Jones Fund. It's fantastic. Hopefully we'll never have to use it. But the fact that we're aware of it, that we got it through the auspices of charities that have been set up in his name, fantastic. Yes, you can always do more. You have to do more. But I think as a sport, we are really responsible. Whereas football's debating whether guys who get paid £500,000 a week should take, a small cut in wages. We've got a bloke on in a van who's a current international delivering food to people in St Helens. I think we have got that balance right.
Happy birthday today, Neil Fox, 81 years old, 6,220 points, which will never, ever be beaten.
And no statue.
No, but he has got a road named after him, so that's that's all right. Neil Fox, somewhere near the Rocket.
It's not the one to the Costa Coffee, is it?
Well, there's a coffee shop nearby, but not that one, no. It's half joking that I expected some of the Wakefield players to be there at the weekend, because rugby league players love a Costa Coffee. What I mean? If Gareth Carvel had come out in League Express today and said, well, we've managed to negotiate our members 50% off at Costa Coffee, I think all the players would definitely be behind him.
Yeah, Costa and Nando's.
Costa and Nando's.
I feel for them. They can't play rugby. They can't go for a Costa. They can't do Nando's. All they can do is stay at home, throw about a toilet roll, or launch a podcast. That's all they can do.
Everybody's doing it.
I mean, I think if players launch podcasts, as I may have shown with my editing skills last week, people should be more careful about what they say on podcasts. And and this is where, if you're not seeing it, Tom Lynham saying he thought Boris Johnson's coronavirus was British. And this was before Boris Johnson went in hospital, in fairness to Lynham. How that was able to be released, I've got no idea. It's all right, I've been in broadcasting for 20 years, so I've got an idea of what you should and shouldn't say, and even sometimes I say things I shouldn't, but I get away with it somehow.
Maybe we're getting a bit more insight into his nickname, Flying Pig.
People take it the wrong way because I've got no interest in who he votes for. He can praise whoever he wants, but I think players should probably be careful about what they say about politics, because it's a very emotive subject and you probably should avoid it. But don't say stupid things, just because people will pick
Leave
up.
that to us.
Yeah,
that's what they're here for.
I don't want players to be silenced, but just be a bit smarter. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I've done a bad thing in highlighting that. Maybe now no people will speak ever. I don't know. But
Right, boys. I'm going to have to love you and leave you. I've got someone else needs a studio, so I'm going to have to go.
Bye, Mark.
Well,
if you're wrapping up, I'll wait. But if you're not, I'm off.
I was just going to mention Nigel, but do we need to mention him or not bother? Should we save him for next week?
You read my text. No, don't read it out. But yeah,
it's a pre-prepared statement from.
No, it's not. Don't say it. I spoke to Nigel. I sent him a text congratulating him on his retirement. He's looking forward. You also, Rich?
And the ownership of Bulls, yeah.
Well, I didn't mention that.
Get your tax off the lawn.
Well, exactly. Get some of them features.
Strike me as the retiring type, to be honest.
No.
Very strange choice of word, I think, in that press release.
Yeah, very strange. Especially ahead of the World Cup.
That's the surprising. I mean, I can understand the economic imperative from the IRL's point of view. He is their highest paid employee. There's no rugby being played at the moment. There's a very fair chance that there'll be very little international rugby league in 2020 because there'll be travel restrictions even if we get back to playing domestically. Clearly, his job requires him to get on a plane and go to places. I can't be doing that at the moment. So I can sort of understand why it would be an agreement to, in the same way that I think, Todd Greenberg has stepped down at the NRL. I think clearly there were people there that decided that we get to a point and then he leaves. And if rumour is to be believed, paid off to leave. So I think the word retirement is a really interesting one. And anybody who's been in Nigel's company, the last thing he would ever agree to do is retire. So, I think it's an economic measure. It sort of makes sense. I'm with you. I would have thought he would have wanted to wait until after the most successful World Cup ever, which he would have quite rightly claimed he was involved in the organising of. And obviously then done voluntary work at Bradford, as he presumably will do.
Jeff Tuvey.
Do you think Bradford have asked for a rent rebate from their landlords at the moment? I think Mark Sawyer's knocked on his own door and said, "Could I have No, never, don't go there." But no, I think there's a lot of division about Nigel, and I think it's safe to say if you look at some of the social media comments when the official announcement was made that he was standing down, that there are some people that clearly dislike him and don't think he's been good for the game. I think we've all met him in formal context and possibly outside of it. One thing you can't accuse him of, I don't think, is that he doesn't have a genuine love for the sport. He clearly does. And I think he has raised the profile of International Rugby League the time he's been at the IRL. Now, I don't know how you determine what's a success and what isn't, but I think he has raised the profile of the international game. And the fact that we have got things like the Oceania Cup and, again, maybe jumped into bed too early with the wrong people for the Denver test and taking a World Cup to America. But that's elevated International Rugby League up the agenda. So I think in this case, it would be hard to criticise him too much for the job that he's done.
Well, I'm sure plenty will try.
Oh,
they'll give it a good go. Anyway.
Oh, they do.
Very good. I couldn't hear what you said then, Rich, but I am now officially going. The studio manager's come in and said if I don't leave the studio, I'm going to be fined half a week's wages. So I'm going to love you and leave you. Paul, it's been great having you on. Get me and Rich one of them T-shirts.
Yes.
But if you just put very on the top. In fact, very, very on the top would do it. All right. I'll see you later.
I'll look into it.
See you guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Anything left for us to discuss?
No, I just want Paul to get that top shelf of his bookcase filled.
Yeah, well, it will do. It's my birthday in a couple of weeks, and I've pretty much asked for books exclusively, so that's waiting those. And like I said, these are the ones that I'm willing for people to see on camera. If this wasn't here before, I'd just put this up just for this.
It's a wallpaper, isn't it? That's not your bookcase.
The obligatory bookcase. It's not even my house. It's not even my house.
The quality of this feed, I don't think we can hardly see each other, let alone the books behind it. It could be anything. Could be great rugby union games of ours.
I assure you, there is nothing to do with eugenics on this.
Nothing by David Irving.
No. There is an Ayn Rand one there, which I'm not too proud about. Might get, but you've got to see what the enemy thinks, haven't you?
Absolutely.
So we
you
saying
can't criticize something if you don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Well, I think that is it, isn't it? Unless I've missed something completely obvious that's happened in the last 7 days. But apart from the £16 million burning a hole in.
No. The only other thing that stands out to me, Richard, is the debut of Daniel Vito recently.
Yes, well, I've written about that, and because there's nothing else to talk about in the world of rugby league on TV. I wrote this column last week, and I've not sent it in yet because there's nothing at all on. So much so there's about 500 words on Sporting Triangles, which Joe Lydon was on, and Gary Schofield on the jigsaw round, which was great fun to see.
Was it a four-piecer?
It's a struggle. No, they got him first of all because they showed the middle square, which was him and his tash, and in 1988 that was obvious who it was. Yeah. Daniel Vito's debut. How would you describe it in rugby league terms?
It was he put up the sort of resistance that of say Flimby and Fothergill against Wigan that time, I think. If you're not into wrestling, and you ask yourself why, but if you're not, that is what we might call a squash match.
Yes.
Basically, his whole purpose was to be in there for a minute and a half and get beaten up. Did he get a punch in? Not sure, but that shouldn't be a reflection on him necessarily.
Rich Holland is going from strength to strength on the program nobody watches, so that's the good news.
Yeah.
Oh, Luke Menzies.
Either really.
Forgive me, I thought this was a podcast about sport.
Oh. Luke Menzies, he wears a hat and has a stick now. I don't know many Yorkshire people who wander around the streets, obviously with the hat, obviously they can, but not with a stick, which apparently
beats. You think he's Chris Eubank? Brackley's answer to Chris Eubank. Does he have a monocle?
Not yet.
Are they kind of aiming at Peaky Blinders and sort of arriving at last of the summer wine? Is that what's happened?
Fighting in a tin bath.
That'll be next, yeah. But wrestling's still an essential business in Florida. Rugby league in the north of England, not an essential business right now because it's all shut. But never mind. We'll be back at some point in there. I mean, you'll be hoping it's back sooner rather than later because obviously there's no League Weekly at the minute.
Well, at the minute, I'm getting paid for absolutely nothing, mate. So it can take its time. But furlough, of course, ends at the end of June for now, doesn't it? So if we're up and running in July, that'll be nicely timed. I'm finding ways of filling my time. Don't worry about me. I'm okay. But yeah, it'd be nice to do a bit of work, I suppose. Can I get away with that lie? I'm not sure.
Just keeping you topped up with a column every month is probably sufficient at the moment.
Exactly, that's an outlet for my nonsense every 4 weeks or so. That reminds me, I must write something soon.
I've got 1,200 words. I just need to work out what I'm going to write about next month. This month's done now. That's in the bank. Next, I've got no idea.
None of us do.
No one knows what is happening. At least they're all the government, but at least they've given us £16 million, and we can only hope that it's spent wisely, just like the money that Rupert Murdoch gave at the start of.
Well, I'm looking at all of our assets that we bought on the back of that. The stadium that we own, the reserves we've got in the bank for a rainy day, the fact that all the clubs are financially buoyant, the players are well paid, all of that.
Let's wait for the mergers now. That's what we need. I saw someone float that at the weekend because obviously there's a lot of rugby league content online. Obviously, 4020 News is the best place to go to for that. But apart from that, a lot of stretching. Oh, what if we merge all the teams? Who would you merge? And what's your favourite try? What's your favourite moment in the history of rugby league over 125 years, but mainly in the last 15?
Make what you can remember.
Yeah. What's your favourite Ashes moment that wasn't in the Ashes?
At what point do we not want to watch any more vintage games? because it either makes us cry because we realise what we're missing, or we already know the score.
Yeah, I'm not big on the vintage games. I must be honest. I'm not. Doesn't quite do it for me.
No.
So
I think it's great that they're out there, and I bookmarked some which I still haven't got round to watching. But I just find it's a really tough watch, because that tells you again why you love the sport, and you go, oh great, I can't wait for the next game. Right, okay. See, the BBC are doing another 5 Challenge Cup finals this weekend.
Oh, didn't know that. So that'll be next month then.
is that on Saturday?
Sunday, I think.
Sunday. Okay, that's good.
Well, that's at least something to watch.
And at least one, I think possibly 2 of them feature Leeds losing, which obviously will draw a mass audience.
I wish they would, and I mentioned this last month, widen the net somewhat, because we've all seen, well, not we've all seen, but the Challenge Cup finals are readily available. They have an archive that stretches back as far back as it goes, with lots of stuff that hasn't been seen for years. Just put some random stuff on. Put some random games on.
We all want to see the Halifax Hull KR 0-0 semi-final.
We want to see
That's
that.
what people want.
Yeah. Sky this week showing the Wigan Bath games.
Wigan Bath.
Friday.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah,
and they're showing both of them back to back. They're showing the League one followed by the Union one Friday night.
I've got Sky now, so I can't watch it. But
they're all on YouTube anyway, as everything is.
Yeah.
To enjoy Craig Murdoch's best try he's ever scored at Twickenham, knocking Gareth Edwards into a cocked hat.
The best try Twickenham has ever seen.
Yeah. People say, oh, well, that Gareth Edwards try, that's the best try ever in rugby. But it was only a friendly. It's only Barbarians. They don't count.
And it was a forward pass.
It was, about 3 of them. Oh, we're bringing back the Exiles, aren't we? Big day for Feta. He wants the Exiles to come back at the end of the season.
That or to play for Tonga with his brother.
Yeah. Well, one or the other. One will do. As long as we rebrand them as the other nationality, so we can go back to the 50s, and then count it as an international. Were the original Exiles games counted as internationals for Caps?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. No. In post-Brexit Britain, it should be just foreigners or something.
Gammon against non-gammon.
So we could wear red and white hoops. We go back to that Northern Union kit again. We're getting political now. We'll be upsetting some rugby league players. But
yeah.
So look forward to that. England versus some people at the end of the season in front of no one, because there's going to be no crowds. At least they've rescheduled the snooker for August and July now, so the Crucible, there might be no one there either, but at least it's going to be on. So
I'm not sure now is the time to be planning additional fixtures, is it? It's probably not the best time.
Not when we haven't cancelled the Ashes series yet, but
yeah. I mean, that's not going ahead, is it?
I wouldn't have thought so. I think again, putting Origin after the 20-round league season is virtually saying we don't need to tell you, but it's not happening.
Yeah.
We need a stronger International Rugby League Federation, whatever it's called, is International Rugby League, isn't it? Yeah.
International Rugby League, yeah.
So Rugby League to say to the Aussies, it's got to come over.
Yeah. Good timing for them to retire the CEO then.
I mean, I've got no experience in running an international sport, and I don't like playing, so I could save them lots of money by taking the job on. I've got spare time. I could do all the meetings on Skype. Set up a time.
I wonder, going back to this behind closed doors, at what point does a television audience find it unsatisfactory? Is it because the one thing that makes you watch sport, particularly if you're not a fan of one of the teams that are playing, is the atmosphere that's generated. You switch on a rugby league game on a Friday night and it's Castleford at home to Warrington, and the jungle's absolutely, thriving in the way that it does, and it's close to the pitch. You don't support either of the teams. Maybe you're a football fan, and that's your Friday night entertainment. What draws you to it is not necessarily who's going to win or the unbelievable skill that's on show. It's the atmosphere. And the one round of the NRL that we had that was behind closed doors, we saw some of those games, and I admire the skill, but it's not the same. Something really, at the heart of sport is missing. So if you were to get a run of matches with nobody in the stadium, and you can hear the referee even more than you normally do, is that going to turn people off, do you think, ultimately?
Yeah, like every match is a Huddersfield home match. It'll be...
That's twice now.
Cowbell.
Those
It
crowd.
wouldn't be the cowbell, yeah. Maybe we can add the cowbell in after sound effects. It doesn't do much for me, and I say that seriously with these Huddersfield games. That's a big problem for them. I think it'd be great if they had a smaller stadium because you'd hear them a lot more, and it'd be a lot more fun to be there and to watch. That's a problem, but it's desperate times, isn't it? And at this point, we're talking about Sky demanding any content they can get their hands on. We've got to do it. Whether it will be watched in the numbers that they would like, I guess we'll see. It depends how desperate everyone is. It depends what else is on as well, doesn't it? At the time,
it also depends how much money advertisers have got to spend.
Yeah.
The whole thing is circular, isn't it? It's not just the number of viewers it attracts. It's then the advertisers saying to Sky, well, you're only getting 20,000 people watching this event. We'll only give you 5p instead of £1 because you should be getting 100,000 people watching these events. And it becomes a bit circular after all of that. You're doing it for the sake of doing it. And if people aren't resubscribing to Sky, or advertisers aren't putting their however many millions they put in, what's the point of that? There's still going to be a production cost for Sky, rigging up a stadium and 23 cameras and 54 replays and 75 people on the gantry commenting on, even if Barry's doing it from home. There is a cost involved. I just wonder if it is the great panacea. I think you can use it for a short period of time to get things up and running, but at some point the whole essence of sport is people going and watching and getting involved and investing in the game and creating the atmosphere by which the players thrive. Yeah,
but then millions of people or whatever, I don't know how many, was it over 4 million watched the virtual Grand National? Desperate time. If people are that sad.
Yeah.
And if you did watch it, then I am calling you out. That is sad. I hope that's not any of you two, but Rod Stud probably.
Yeah.
I get, like I say, desperate times. I agree with you. It's part of the soul of the game, isn't it? The crowd.
I think the other worry for football, and we're not here to discuss football, is that they're coming to the end of their season. So if Wigan were going for promotion this year, which of course they should be, Wigan Athletic. Great, I think we call them Wigan Athletic. But the last game of the season, behind closed doors, they were playing a team and victory meant promotion. How are you going to stop 15,000 people standing outside the ground wanting to be part of that experience and cheering? When Liverpool pick up the league, as they inevitably will if we get a resumption of football, how are you going to stop all those people that have waited 30 years not being part of that celebration?
Yeah, I won't worry too much about too many Wigan Athletic fans.
I
say that as my, it's my team. But yeah, it's a tough one for Liverpool, isn't it? But people have got to be responsible. Yeah, it's going to be a test for our security and for our police, isn't it? But you've got to be tough on these things. There are more important things than celebrating, your first title in 30 years. And I guess it's ironic that the man who came up with that quote that we all know is the perhaps the greatest manager of that football club, but he was being a bit facetious, I think, wasn't he, at the time? Yeah. So it is what it is, which sounds ridiculous and fatuous, but it's that's without yeah, exactly, and without going into the cliche of unprecedented times, it's difficult. Yeah, how do you stop them? I don't know. Hopefully, people have more sense and think a little bit about their actions and aren't saying the same mold as some of the people in America right now. Those anti-vaxxers, Tom Lynham's folks.
As much, I don't want to make him some kind of martyr here. As much as, although the internet's done that already, so it's all right. It's my fault. As much as we talk about broadcasters wanting content, our major sponsors all need content at the moment as well. So a return to any kind of normal sport would be welcome for them. And what was interesting is, going back to the wrestling briefly, they had a 3-person commentary team last Wednesday, all in different locations. So we can have Baz and Tez at their own homes, and Brian at his house, and everyone else, Bill somewhere else. And I don't think, Jenna can interview people down the phone or something. I'm sure we'll work something out. Finally, I think because I just remember this because I've tweeted it out today on the 4020 live account. 4th of May 1990, Phil, were you at Headingley as the Leeds Alliance took on the Moscow Magicians?
I was. It was an A-team game. And I think the plan originally was to play a team called Russia, but there was some issue with visas or who was representing the national team. So the Magicians were a club that existed at the time. I don't think they do anymore. But it's another salutary reminder that we never quite get expansion right or new markets. You know, I was reading the other day that Russian Rugby League has consistently had to restart. There's a lot of, not unsurprisingly, politics involved in the countries, and particularly when the empire split, because it was very easy to brand a team Russia, even if they came from across Moldova and various other places that then got their own independence. But they played America in I don't think we could call it a test match. It was a friendly international, and 25,000 people turned up at Moscow. Now, again, that might have just been the lure of Russia beating America at Tiddlywinks, but we've never really capitalised. What was the point of that game? I think they played York as well on that mini tour.
Yes, York and Fulham combined 13.
And it led to absolutely nothing. So it's a salutary tale of rugby league, but I do remember the very famous picture of the scoreboard at Headingley, as it then was, which was on the Western Terrace, and was one of the first electronic ones, but light bulbs went out on a very frequent occasions, and it just said Leeds against Moscow, and you thought, well, you got to be there for that moment to say I was there, but it never came to anything.
It's only recently we've got an electric scoreboard at the Mobile Rocket, let alone, bulbs going out. Dear me. Still had someone holding bits of cardboard up about 5 years ago.
You had a scoreboard, somebody just came and took it away.
Someone took it away for whatever reason that was taken away. Yes, that's correct. That was in the bad old days. now in the new era where, everything's all right, apart from this bloody coronavirus. But it might go away soon.
Yeah, everything's fine apart from the global pandemic.
Aside from that, with Warrington, that was all right, and then this global pandemic came along. It's like, never mind. Paul, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule, obviously, of putting your bookcase up.
Yeah. I've done 2 podcasts today.
I know, yeah. I mean, if I'd have known. It's like guest. It's like when you see Luke Gale on one program and he turns up on another program the same week. So what can you do? You're the Luke Gale of this program.
He'll have his own fan club if he's not careful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fingers crossed. Obviously, we're reading League Weekly again soon, but obviously not too bothered because you're getting paid anyway, so that's all right.
Well, that's
the main thing.
Hopefully, the official line is yes. Hopefully, we'll be back soon, and providing the service that we enjoy providing for all our readers.
Yeah, I mean, I've not sent a letter in for a while, so I need to get back on the letters page because I've been on it once.
Did you have a fake name? I don't remember.
Of course I've got a fake name, yes. Why would I use my own name to make spurious political points about Rugby League broadcasting?
It's great.
I save them for private messages. Paul, thank you very much. Phil, the magazine coming along well?
We filled it, provided people actually send in their contributions.
Yes, I will do.
Every page is full, and we've tried to make it as entertaining a read during these difficult times for everybody as possible.
Excellent. Well, that was 4020 Not Live, and we'll probably be back again next week because there's nothing else going on.